Cubby Chatter Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Cubby Chatter Podcast. I am your host, Coleman, and today we'll be talking about one topic and one important topic. It is going to be about what players are in the Cubs farm system and what to know about them, and just give a general overview and a deep dive on a few of the players and talk about what will happen and what to expect from them. So now, with that note, let's chat away. Well, thank you for joining us here on another episode of the Cubby Chatter Podcast. I hope everyone is doing very well and enjoying the somewhat nice weather that we are having over here in the Chicagoland area if you're watching from Chicago. And if you're not, I hope you're doing well wherever you are currently at. I wanted to kind of discuss what players you should know for each position and kind of go into that so you can kind of get an idea of what is going on with them. And I'll also talk about what level each non-roster invitee is at. So I think that is good to know. So this is going to be a longer episode, I believe. Who knows? It might not be. But I'll get into it right now and stop wasting time. So for catcher position, you have quite a few people, but you have two or three non-roster invitees, actually. And those include Christian Bethancourt, Casey Optes, Ariel Armas. All those are non-roster invitees. And then you have two Arizona Fall League players, Owen Ayers, like I said, always I'm not good at pronouncing names, so this is like quite the episode, and Logan Petit. Those are the two for Arizona Fall Leagues. All of them were drafted by the Cubs, except obviously Christian Bethancourt, who was drafted who signed his contract in March of 2008 with the Braves. But other than that, all the rest of the catchers, because there's a few more in the lower leagues in Single A and A plus that are all signed by the Cubs. Everyone's signed by the Cubs except for that. And the three non-roster invitees, Christian Bethancourt is 34, Casey Optes is 27, and then Ariel Armas is 23 years old. And the only person that has MLB service time is Christian Bethancourt with 5 years service time, and he was signed in December of 2025. He and Casey Optes are in Triple A, and then Ariel Armas is in Double A as a catcher. All three of those are catchers. And then Owen Ayers and Logan Petit. But Owen Ayers is a first baseman as well, and both of those players are in A plus. Round wise, the people that have been drafted by the Cubs, which is Casey Optes, Ariel Armas, were round 8 and round 5 pick. Casey Optes was from 2021, and then Ariel was from 2024. So those are the players to keep an eye on for catching. None of them have 2026 projections in the big leagues, as they might not get up there in time for anything. The max level this year, projected wise, is MLB for Christian Bethancourt, who's in Triple A, and then for Triple A with Casey Optes, it is still Triple A is the max level. So those are the guys to kind of look out for catchers. Moving on to first base, you have Jonathan Long and BJ Murray, who are non-roster invitees, and then you have Cole Mathis, who is an Arizona Fall League guy. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention with the catchers, Christian Bethencourt's a right-hander, Casey Aptes is a switch hitter, Ariel Armas is a right-handed hitter, and then Owen Aries is a switch hitter, and Logan Petit is a right-handed hitter. So that's how that goes with the catchers. But with Jonathan Long, he's a right-hander. B.J. Murray is a switch hitter, and then Cole Mathis is a 22-year-old right-handed hitter. B.J. Murray is 26, and Jonathan Long is 24. Everyone has been originally signed with the Cubs as their um, original signing, and all of them have been acquired by draft, except B.J. Murray, or no, he's been acquired by draft pick. Sorry, um, all these, or Jonathan Long and B.J. Murray are in AAA, and then Cole Mathis is in Single A. I forget if I mentioned that. And then you have a few guys in A plus, and then one guy in Double A. That's how it stacks up for first baseman. And max level, no one is projected to get to the MLB this year. Jonathan Long, though, is projected to get to stay in AAA. Basically, that's the main guy, Jonathan Long and B.J. Murray, both in 24 and 26. So we'll see what happens with this year, with how they perform this year, and see if there's any developments with that. Moving on to second base, you have quite a few players, and none of them have been non-roster invitees. Um, James Trianos, he plays second base, center field, left field. Karson Simas, and Hayden, I'm not even going to be able to pronounce that last name, Contrelli. I'm going to go with that. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, which I did. Um, James, like I said, plays second base, center field, and left field. Karson plays second base, right field, left field, and then Hayden plays second base, shortstop, and right field. Um, Karson was a free agent from Boston. He got signed in January of this year. Um, those are the guys in AAA, and then we have one guy in A plus, Alexis Hernandez, and then you have also a round, or an A level. And by the way, these are projections with the levels, but they're pretty solid. And if I had to guess, I would agree with what is being said here. Um, James, I'm sorry if I am quiet for a second because I'm trying to look at all the info. James is a right hander, Karson is a right hander, Hayden is a switch hitter, and age wise, James is 23, Karson is 24, and Hayden is 27. Like I said, all those. Karson was a free agent. James was drafted in the second round, and then Hayden was a Rule 5 pickup in December of 23. Um, Max level for all those guys is also Triple A, so I also would agree, I would tend to agree, unless they get called up in September. And the only one I could see possibly getting called up is James. If I had to throw a wild guess out there. Um, Moving on to third base. Um, you don't. Your main prospect with third base is Matt Shaw. Other than that, it's pretty stale, and I'm not trying to diss anyone that is there. But you have Pedro Ramirez, who is projected to be Triple A, which he might not be. He might be Double A. That one's been in the air. Amateur free agent out of Venezuela in January of 21. Um, That's the only guy that is like out there. We'll see what happens. I'm not expecting anything to happen with these guys this year. Obviously, Matt Shaw's up in the big leagues and will stay there, I would assume. Um, so I mean, he's going to be watched, and he had a pretty good second half last year. Um, if we actually take a look at Matt Shaw, because I'd still call him a prospect. I mean, you have a few prospects in the lineup currently. You have Matt Shaw, who is projected to be on the bench currently, but he might be playing right field and DHing some, and then Moises Balsantros, who is also projected to be DH. Both of those guys are up in the big leagues, and obviously that's a good sign when you're in the big leagues after being prospects. So that's how third base is shaping up. And then shortstop, you have a few good players, I would say, as one is a non-roster, two actually are non-roster invitees, which are Scott Kingery and Jefferson Rojas. And then the other guy to pay attention to is Ben Cowles, who he's he could be good. We'll see what happens though. And the two non-roster invitees, Scott is a 31-year-old and Jefferson Rojas is 20 years old. And then Ben Cowles, who was picked off of waivers this year or this offseason, January 26. Um, he is also 26. All of the people that are projected to be in AAA actually were either picked up on waivers or free agents this offseason. So that's interesting to note. And Scott Kingery also, his max level is MLB with the same as Owen Miller. I would probably disagree with that if I had to guess. Um, they both do play shortstop, second, third, center, that kind of deal. And then Jefferson Rojas is the same with short, second, and third base. And he was picked up in January of 22. No one, the earliest, or well, I shouldn't even say that. The person who got, there's only one person that got drafted in all of, with the shortstop, as of currently right now, which that would be, let's see, Ed Howard, or two people, sorry, Ed Howard and Yahel Melendez. Both were drafted by the Cubs. Other than that, all of them are free agents, amateur free agents, and waivers. But Ben Cowles, I'd take a look at, and then obviously the non-roster invitees. And then Ed Howard, I forget if I mentioned, is an Arizona Fall League guy. Um, he's good, 24 years old, and batting wise, everyone's right-handed that I've mentioned, except one of the people that got drafted by the Cubs, Yahiel Melendez, who's a lefty. But that's the kind of overview for shortstop. And moving on to the outfield, which obviously there's a lot of people, but only two non-roster invitees, Dylan Carlson and Brett Bateman, and that is it for outfield. You have Kevin Alcantara or Alcantara. I don't know how to pronounce it. If someone could let me know, that'd be great. I I forget how it works if he is able to be playing in spring training. I don't know how all that works, but the non-roster invitees, or because you can't, non-roster would be not on the 40-man roster. So yeah, Kevin Alcantara and Justin Dean can be brought up, I would assume, but I might be wrong. But I'm talking about non-roster invitees because that's always interesting that they're not on the roster and they're being invited, which that kind of says something. Um, for non-roster invitees, you have Dylan Carlson and Brett Bateman, a switch hitter and a lefty. 27 and 23 for those guys. Dylan Carlson was a free agent pickup from January of 26. Justin Dean, who is not a non-roster invitee, but he might be able to be called up, I'm not quite sure, is from waivers from the Giants, also in January of 26. And you have also in this crew Parker Chavez and Jordan Nawugu with in Triple A, and all those guys were drafted by the Cubs. Um, MLB wise, max level is Kevin Alcantara or Alcantara. I'll go with Alcantara because that's what I've been saying forever. And then Justin Dean and also Dylan Carlson. All their max level is the MLB, but we'll see what happens with that. And Double A, and that's about really it. None of the names. Ethan Conrad, um, drafted first by the Cubs in 25. Um, that's another one to look at. Kane Kepley, who was drafted second round, another one to look at. Who's an A plus, and Ethan Conrad is in a he's in the league of A. But that's basically the kind of situation for outfield right there. And then moving on to starting pitching, you have quite a few people. You have one, two, three, four, five starting pitchers that are going to be non-roster invitees. You have Jackson Wiggins, Connor Noland, Kyle Wright, Grant Kipp, and Connor Schultz. Those are non-roster invitees. And then you have Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks. They'll be there. For the guys that are non-roster invitees, one's a free agent, Kyle Wright, from February of this year. He will be a non-roster invitee. Age-wise, Jackson is 24, Connor is 26, Kyle is 30, Grant is 26, and then Connor Schultz is 27, and those are the non-roster invitees. Then Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks, both 26. And that's kind of how it works out with that. MLB service time, Kyle Wright has some, and then obviously Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks have some as well. And then you have a few AAA players that are not non-roster invitees, and those are Vince Velasquez, Charlie Barnes, and Tyler Beatty that are all have some roster time in the MLB as well. Those are the AAA pitchers, respectively. The only one that I've mentioned was Charlie Barnes and Jordan Wicks, who are both left-handed. All the rest have been right-handers. Jackson Wiggins is obviously a pretty big deal. So he's definitely someone to kind of take a look at. He is overall around 66 in MLB. That might have changed from last year, but from what I'm looking at, and he's the third best on our team. Who is beating him out? Let me take a look. Who is second or one? They have Kevin Alcantara one, and they have Jefferson Rojas as two. That's BS. Jackson Wiggins is number one, and I'll stand by that. But he is the only he's not. You also have Kevin Alcantara and Jefferson Rojas as pretty high up overall in all of MLB. But those are good things to know. Will Sanders is another guy to watch. I didn't mention him, but he's almost 24, right-hander in AAA, drafted fourth round. We'll see what he can do. Any other guys that I'd think? Let me see. Nazier Mully, who's an A plus. He's someone to kind of look at. He's drafted in round 4 of 22. He's 21, right-hander. And then Nick Dean is another one. We'll see what happens with him. He was drafted in round 23. And I was giving too much credit at fourth. Nazier Mully was drafted in round 22. Sorry about that. I was mixing up the dates, or drafted ninth round. No, I was right. Um, I'm losing my mind. They were what I said before. Third round and then fourth round. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. It's late at night when I'm recording this. But those are the guys that you should look at starting pitching wise, and then relief pitcher wise. You have multiple people, non-roster invitees that have been non-roster invitees that have been signed as free agents, and those include Trent Thornton, Colin Snyder, Corbin Martin, and Jeff Brigham. Respective ages is 32, 30, 30, 34. All of them have been signed this offseason, and we'll see what happens there. All of them have MLB service time, so we can see someone that pops off and becomes an MLB relief pitcher. Very well possible. And then also above them, you have Ryan Rowlison, um, Gavin Howell, Ethan Roberts, Luke Little, Porter Hodge, Riley Martin, Jack Neely. Um, all of those guys have MLB time, and so you probably have heard of them if you're a diehard Cubs fan like me, and have seen them play. Obviously, those guys are there, and people to watch off of that group is obviously Jack Neely, Riley Martin, um, and another one would be if I could fix my screen. Another one would be Zach Lay, 28. He was drafted in the 16th round in 21, but he's in AAA, so that's showing signs right there. But those are the non-roster invitees for that. Then you have a few people from AAA and A plus that are in the Arizona Fall League. But what players to watch just in general as top prospects for the Cubs? Jonathan Long, B.J. Murray, Cole Mathias. All those guys are first basemen. Moving down the list, second base, you have James Triano. I can never pronounce names. Triantos. And then you have Ty Suthazini. I sorry pronouncing that wrong. He's in single A for second base. I don't think I mentioned him. And then Juan Cabede. I'm sorry again. 17. And he is an amateur free agent. And he's one to look at. He's the lefty, 17, like I said. Third base wise, you really have one, in my opinion. Matt Shaw. That's about it. You can say Pedro Ramirez, and see what he does. He's 21 and in AAA. And then for shortstop, you have Ben Cowles, Jefferson Rojas, Yahiel Melendez, Arian Diaz, Roman, um, Juan Thomas, Fernando Cruz, and something Valdez. I'm sorry for not being able to pronounce that. All those guys, you can watch a lot of them. I didn't mention as they were not non-roster invitees, but a lot of those guys, a few of them are amateur free agents, so like 18, 19, and then Jefferson Rojas and Ben Cowles I mentioned, but the other guys are in single A and amateur free agents. Outfield wise, you have Kevin Alcantara, Brett Bateman, you have Kane Kepley, Ethan Conrad, Eli Lovich. I'm sorry again. Those guys you can kind of look at. Two of them are in single A, and then you have one in A plus, and then obviously the other two are in AAA. Starting pitching wise, you have Jackson Wiggins, Connor Noland, Will Sanders, Brandon Birdsell, who is injured by the way, Brody McCauley, injured. Those two are injured, but they're top rank. Nick Dean, Nazar Mole, um, Dominic Reed is also one to keep an eye on. Those guys are highly ranked. One's in single A, like I said. A few are injured, a few are in A plus, and if one is in double A, and then the rest like Jackson Wiggins, Connor Noland, and Will Sanders are in triple A. And then moving down to relief pitchers, you have Jack Neely and Riley Martin as high ranked players. And then you also have Zach Lay, um, who is up there as well for highly ranked, and all of those guys are in triple A. So I hope this kind of gives you an idea of what to kind of what you're seeing here, and kind of what players to look after and what players to watch. This, even if they're not in spring training, most of those guys that I named at the end probably won't, except the non-roster invitees. Um, so keep an eye on those names through when they're in double A, single A, because those guys could be good in the future. And they could also be trade pieces to get people at the deadline. So make sure you track those. Um, but thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen. If you could do me a favor and share this podcast with all Cubs fans you know, leave a review and a like. That is extremely, very much greatly appreciated and helps this podcast out a ton. Now, as always, have a great day and go Cubs, go.